So while we're in the shop for the lift, we're going to do a headlight upgrade as well, because I just did some interstate driving and late night driving and over hill and dale driving and towing in the rain, and these headlights are absolutely terrible. I was really stressed out for most of it, and absolutely had to keep going. So it's just unbelievable how little light they put out. I wanted to see what was available to, I don't want to say mitigate cost, because in the end I don't mind spending if it's going to be a good option. But basically the problem is headlight brightness. I don't want the truck to look silly and have some kind of 5-6K light temperature headlights, but I also didn't want, what I'm saying is I didn't want to have to necessarily replace this entire fixture. The turn signal and the marker lights and whatever, it's fine. If I end up having to replace this component where the headlight is housed for a clearer one, well then I could test that, I guess, right now as I'm wiping some oils on there. It's clearing that out a little bit. So the point is I would do that much. But then what to do about the bulb, projector, HID, and I was told, that's all kind of behind us in a lot of ways. The LED is a much better option. I've used super bright LEDs before from over 10 years for different custom projects. But what was cool, I got everything that they offered just so I could get up and running. I don't know what's going to become necessary, but you're going to find out for this. I don't know what that is. For this 95 F250. But these other drivers and resistor packs sometimes are necessary with your making, I don't know where that came from either, when you're changing the electrical system. So however, super bright LEDs has a complete kit for replacing anything that uses this type of bulb, this format, the 9007 I want to say. And you can change the temperature of it with these different filters that they offer, and they've got their own little inline whatever packs, magic packs. And so I'm going to try just that much to begin with. And I've been told directly on the phone, when I asked them directly about this particular application, they said that ought to be all you need. So we'll send this other stuff back. But first things first, the retaining ring on this truck has got these little, or it used to have these little tabs around the inside. See them in there? This, snapped right off. This is so crispy. It's like Bakelite kind of. I bet you if I squeezed it enough, I could get it to break. So I had to end up getting new ones. That's a Dorman 42412. And they're longer, taller as you sit them there, right? But I think that's just because whoever was going to 3D model this and put it back into production thought, it could be a little bit longer and have bigger knurling so that you could actually get your hand on it. This has less frequent knurling and it's shorter, so you can't choke up on it and get the palm of your hand into play there. You're always out here, and probably the first digit and right on the bone and knuckle, it makes a difference from applying power to a turn. If you can jump it into there, now you really got you've doubled your surface area. So in effect, anyway, got some new babies. Then they want us to take the locking ring off of it, which means you got to undo the set screw ski. There it is. In one of these 4 positions, there's a set screw, and then that'll slide off, and then we can get this thing on there, and then we can put this thing back on, presumably. And then where do you clock it, though? Because it's got 3 notches, and the way in which the light LED emitters go horizontally, it's indicated you should have. Make sure LEDs are shining horizontally when installed. So we've got some things to take stock of here, like when that turns in and locks up, does that force us into a vertical shine situation, a VCS or a VSS? Anyway, let's see. All right, you're going to get the full experience now, because after I went through how handy it's going to be that they changed the geometry to be a bit longer here so it's easier to, not that you need to muscle these on or off often, or that it should be that difficult, but in some cases this type of a cap thing is a bitch to turn. I know the Subaru is. So anyway, somebody did what they could here probably, but then you find out that in the case at least of this situation, somebody wants to use this to upgrade to an LED bulb that has to have a big heat sink on the back of it, and the heat sink is too large to continue into the body of this, and so we can't get this to the depth that we need. We need to cut this bad boy back at least as shallow as the original equipment, which is, I looked at this, it's just into the grippy tabs by a little bit. hard to illustrate with the lens. But, and so you'd want to cut this. I'm going to use basically all of this and up into there by a little bit. I can always take more, but it's this front end with the clips in it that we want to keep the smooth part. And so basically I don't mind keeping it long to start with. I'll have little nubbies to try and turn it with, because even though this is brand new, it's somehow very slippery still. And it probably still has mold release on it, actually being a low run production part. They probably don't clean them up or anything like that. So anyway, how do we cut him down though? I don't have a lathe. I'd love to just put him in the lathe and spin that and just cut right through it, you know. I do have a lathe, but it's not dialed in yet. Well, I have a slitting saw from the milling machine, and rather than messing with my setup on the milling machine, I can just chuck this in. It's got very little teeth on it, and we can spin that up. And then I just put a washer and a screw into a piece of MDF here, and I set the elevation up where I was talking about trying to cut this baby off. And so we'll just walk this in and let it do some cutting. Mind your hands. You can grab it, so I'm going to want 2 hands. And we'll take our time because it's plastic and it can get sticky. But we'll start with taking that much off, and we'll see if that does the trick. There you have it. One of the other things you can do is just get through the wall thickness on something like this. Don't be bound and determined to bury this in there. There's no good reason to do that. Just kiss it into the blade all the way around, number 1. You can lube up with a little bit of graphite dust or baby powder if you don't want to oil things up and get them wet, basically, and make sure this slides really nicely so that you aren't pushing and then getting tipped on there. And then I'm really holding down well, and I'm keeping my fingers well away from this, because this setup here isn't anything that's typical to a drill press, and so we don't have guards and stuff like that. If this were to pick up and kick up and you were to desperately hang on to it for just 1 second, it could crush your fingers between the blade and drag your arm around, and you know, and then when you stop turning with it, it's going to start cutting into you. And when you turn these things off, they freewheel for a little bit. So stay the hell away from it. If you need to make this piece of wood bigger, do so. Give yourself a couple arms on it out here, and you can really easily steer it around underneath. And that way, if things kick out, it'll mung up your part, you know, and it won't come close to harming your fingers. So I did this way because I have a lot of experience with this, and this is relatively small. You can do something like this with a much larger drill press, or make yourself a big table out here to trim something like a vacuum form or something with a perfectly flat plane that is as parallel to the table as possible. So if the table's parallel to the blade, because the blade's coaxial to the arbor and the arbor's in the drill press, and if you can mount an organic shape to a flat surface and slide that flat surface around on the flat table, then you can cut the edges of that surface as an offset, factor of an offset from that table with a slitting saw like this. If the slitting saw will cut through the wall thickness of that stuff, and if you had the wherewithal to manipulate the whole scenario all the way around, etc., etc., it's a really cool and versatile type of a thing. Let's see if we made some improvements. Another thing is, if you need that hole saw, or excuse me, that slitting saw is what that's called. Slitting saw blades and slitting saw arbor, you can just go on McMaster-Carr and type that stuff in. This here, though, as I see now, is going to be a factor of being able to, because you got to take that set screw out of this thing here, and there's the hole. Whoops, he almost dropped stuff, but there's the hole in the side of the thing. We've got to be able to at least put that screw back into it, attach this back on there. So we need that much more off of this thing. I know. Okay, that setup ended up, I had to find these tabs on this thing with the little keyways for them on that collar, because these things will rotate independent of one another. Like this plastic unit has got the same 3 keys as the keyways on the locking ring of the bulb, but they're spinnable, or they're independent. So you can spin the 2 relative to one another. Anyway, that's all the more I can do after I get the set screw in where to go there. This I can't move up and down at all. I can get you that measurement, but that's basically what I've got, or it's exactly what I've got the table to the blade set at right now. Plus the height of the MDF. So anyway, it looks like a little more than an inch. Regardless, that's where you want to get to. And then I believe that I can find, firstly, because you got to get onto that thing, I'm going to have to get these keys on the surround into the body of the headlamp, and then I guess just turn it. I suppose, yeah, just turn it. The keyway holes on that part that came with the bulb don't have much to do with any of this. But then I've got to make sure that my LEDs are shining horizontally when we're finished here, and I don't know how the hell to be sure of that, because even if I go in, we're going to have to see here. We're gonna have to see if I can even do it one-handedly. I could maybe turn them once it's locked in there. I don't know. I'd love for it to feel like anything locked whatsoever. I'll sit here and record and tell you how I feel about it. It doesn't want to turn now. Let's just see what this is going to record. Well, I wanted some satisfaction, so I turned it on. And it, with this very scientific test, appears much brighter. Twice as bright? Who knows? Certainly whiter. Twice as white? Again, who knows? My marker appears to be out on this driver's side. But the problem remains that despite the fact that everything sort of fits snugly, and I could do this for the first time without it having to be taped or something, it doesn't lock on, and you're not going to get it to lock on. Perhaps I could make it thinner. Yeah, that may be a hindrance. I might be on the right track. I'm just going to set the blade depth lower. I can say now with certainty that little piece of MDF is, I can't say with certainty if it'll get me through yet, but I've felt danger's presence a couple of times already here. You probably should go twice as big. Just go with an 8x8 instead of a 4x4. That's a huge step in the right direction as far as the size of this thing here. So let's take a little more off of that guy and see if we can get him to, and just get a out of him, and then we could maybe just get that done, and then maybe something would be checked off the list here. Okay. Well, I'll give you the magic number on how far you got to cut these down. It is a good deal shorter than the OEM ones. Now, this other one from the other side of the truck, these tabs are far more substantial. They all just snapped right off on the other one. You do have to take, and I ordered 2 kits for some reason. The way that they're pictured on super bright LEDs makes you feel that you need 2 instances, but really the kit itself is 2 bulbs and 2 resistor packs or drivers or whatever. You got to take that set screw out, and then you got to put this collar down, and then put this back and put the set screw back to make this work. But even your OE ones, if you're going to cut, if you're going to use those, will need to be cut down, and I can show you that more exactly here. Make yourself a little jiggy. I'm not going to end up holding it down here, but you're going to cut the back side down. The business end with the 3 little keys and the tabs goes down, and it's got to be, there's the OE one, it's got to be that much shorter overall, and the dimension from the surface that I'm using to there, I'll give you that as soon as I find myself a little tapey measure. Hang on. Okay, 1 inch, dead nuts, 1 inch tall. That's what you got to cut your OE or your aftermarket retainer rings down, and then you can use just 1 kit, and it's plug and play. Bam. And I haven't chosen to use either one of the filters. They give you a bluish filter that's right behind the yellow there, but I'll see what I think about that. I'm trying to make that factory kind of hue, even though the brightness should be technically the same lumens. So we'll see. Anyway, hopefully that makes it easy to buy with confidence and make those lights work a little bit better on that OBS Ford truck. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you.